Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Unexpected Podcast. And today I'm with my hosts, Matt Iverson and Rainier Lee. Pretty much we're representing the best of the Unexpected Podcast here. We've decided to leave everyone off for one of the most important discussions. But no, we're going to be talking about top 3 monsters today. And we're also going to be going into our list review. So for everybody who doesn't know, you can submit a list to us where we will review it and talk about it here on the show. We actually usually have about 5, 6 people here who will review your list. And with that in mind, let's go into the list review before we get into our main subject.
Before we do that, we owe a listener an apology. And so Heike, I think I am pronouncing that right. I did actually follow the link. I listened to the electronic pronunciation. I believe it is pronounced Heike. We apologize for butchering your names. This is an apology for everyone whose name we butchered, but in particular Heike, because he mentioned that he almost had a stroke when he heard us mispronounce it. And we want to be careful. We've only got 4 listeners. We certainly don't want to kill one of them by mispronouncing their name. So sorry about that, Heike. We apologize.
This is why, who read the name off of last time?
I'm going to point my finger at Tim because he is not here.
It's all Tim's fault.
Yeah, Tim typically, if the name's from Europe, Tim usually reads it backwards. So.
I mean, all right. So we'll hopefully, do we have an easier name to pronounce this time? You think?
Well, we'll see. It's another German name, but
all right, I'll give it my best shot.
All right, so okay, here you go. See what you can do with this.
All right. So, Lewis, right? All right.
No, I think it's actually pronounced
Luis.
Loius.
Oh my gosh, this is supposed to be simple, and we've already screwed this one up. I'm gonna call it.
It's really though. It's his last name that's really the problem, I think, with this particular one.
Yeah, because is it E or is it or is it Like we
that's
have
right.
to figure that
Is it
out.
a soft E? Is it a hard E? We just don't know.
All right. Well, I'm going with Lewis. Yeah, but I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing it wrong. But basically, this person essentially wants us to review their list and is building an Angmar and Moria list. And as anybody who knows, who listens to this podcast, we actually usually review it in a competitive fashion. So we don't think about theme. We are trying to help you win your games. So essentially, he is in a 750-point list with 43 models. Those models start with the DWimmer Lake on Armored Fell Beast, and I believe that is the leader. And he is leading 14 orcs with a shield and then 1 specter. Then there's an Angmar Shaman with 3 orcs with a shield and 1 orc, I guess just bare bones. And then Birder, the cave troll leader. And then there's Durberts with 2 bat swarms and leading 13 goblins as well with a spear. It seems like the 13 goblins with a spear are purposely not given a shield, so they're going to be behind the 14 orcs is, I think, the intention. And then a Black Shield Shaman with 5 goblins with a spear as well. So that is a total of 43 models at 750 points, 7 might, 2 strikes. And essentially his idea was having nerf abilities with Moria and Angmar combined with some mass and hitting power. He wanted the DWimmer Lake to drain some of the will of the heroes and, essentially reduce their ability to resist spells. Seems like for the Angmar Shaman and the Black Shield Shaman. So he's pretty much pummeling his opponent with magic and models seems to be the intent here. And other than that, that's pretty much all of the main things he was going for. And he gave some ideas on some replacements. So going into it at 750 points, I'm trying to see here. So Maelstrom is going to hurt. I think that this is definitely intended to deploy together. Anything that forces you to deploy separately is going to be a problem. The DWimmer Lake has 0 will. Your Shamans only have 1 might, which, to be honest, the Black Shield Shaman doesn't really need. But the Angmar Shaman, I believe, what are the spells in the Angmar Shaman? The Wither and Transfix, right?
Tremor.
Yeah.
Tremor's on the Black Shield Shaman. So Black Shield's going to want to cast Shatter.
Wither and Instill Fear is the other one that's on the
Instill Fear. So you probably, although Instill Fear is good, you probably know what you're going to cast. You're going to cast Wither. So you do have some excellent hero reduction. I mean, this is enough magic at 750 points to cause some heroes some problems. I think anything at 750 points is probably going to have 3 hard hitters, or at least try to. Anything with less than that, and they're going to really start to suffer from the weight of all these spells. I don't think I honestly, I'm not going to lie, I haven't played the DWimmer since the new edition came out because it just feels like his new ability is terrible. But I'd be very, very tempted to swap him for the Witch King, even at an equivalent point level. But I can understand the aura of 6 inches. What for those who also are like me and haven't played, this character, his aura has been reduced to 6 inches, and I think it's like every time someone uses a Might, Will, or Fate, you roll a dice and a 4-up, they've got to use another.
Well, you have a choice because that was the change to the rule. Now you need to spend a point of will in order to do this. So basically, somebody spends a point of Might, Will, or Fate within 6 inches of the Dwimmer Lake. The Dwimmer Lake then can choose to spend a point of will. If he does that, then he rolls the die, and on a 4+, the hero has to spend either another point of Might, Will, or Fate, or just have the effect canceled, and the point of Might, Will, or Fate will be lost.
Okay, so basically you're spending will for a 50-50 shot at giving your opponent a choice of if they want to keep going with something. So I can, and at a 6-inch range as well.
And what about the armored fell beast? That's about 20 points that I think he could probably do without.
And I agree with that. I was just starting with the Dwimmer Lake and giving you guys other areas to
well,
throw at it.
Make your pitch. I have played with the Dwimmer Lake, so I'll defend the choice. But go ahead and make your pitch.
All right, so we'll defend the choice then. You know what? I'll grab the book here, and we'll talk about. I'm trying to think. Dwimmer Lake, and I'm going to ignore the fact that he's on fell beast. So for 120 points, to get a Witch King outfitted exactly the same way, or as close and similar possible. Well, you know what? I'm in Angmar, and I guess it's a mortar section. What is the Witch King's like 70 base? And then
the Witch King is 70 base. He's really 95 base because who's not going to take the crown?
Oh, that's true. So okay, so 95. Well, that makes my math easy then. 95 base, and that's a 0-10-0.
Yes.
0-10-0. Yeah.
So that really gives you 25 points to outfit him with everything else that you want, which is essentially, we'll say 2 might. I don't know if I agree with 2 fate, but we'll just say it. And then so he'll be at 11. So you're actually getting more magical firepower with the Dwimmer Lake than you would with the Witch King. However, the Witch King is re-rolling die to cast spells, meaning he needs less to actually fire off with. 11 and 16 is quite a margin, but having 2 points of might. The thing is, what you're also sacrificing, when you have the Dwimmer Lake on Fell Beast, you're trying to use him as a combat character, and not having might on a Fell Beast is kind of almost a waste to me. I mean, you can throw him out in circumstances, but not really, because you know that heroic strikes or not being able to heroic combat or do things certain effectiveness, like it is completely reduced. I almost would be tempted to say, if you're gonna do this at all, take the Fell Beast away and just throw him on a horse. If you're gonna have the Dwimmer Lake, I'm not even sure I care about the Fell Beast. I think the only way I would have a Fell Beast is if I'm either using the Tainted, whom has 2 points of might, or the Witch King. And that's really, if I'm gonna play the Dwimmer Lake, I just don't think I'd throw him on that. Though I understand the reason you do, because if you don't have a Fell Beast, well, then your hitting power is reduced to Birder. So
now
I mean,
I think he says so. He says he's new to the game. To put this into context, like
okay.
there's different spectrums of ring wraiths, and the combat-y ones you would say you'd be the Witch King of Agmar, Kamul, possibly the Betrayer. Am I missing anything? Then you'd have like support ones like the Shadow Lord, and I'd position the Dwimmer Lake as a support one, to where you actually like tag him on with the Witch King, or tag him on with another magic like combat caster or something like that, and he's in the back ranks either on horse or on foot doing the shenanigans that he does with his special rule, just to like throw that into context. If you guys
I'm glad you did, because there are a lot of newer players who might be wondering, like, well, what's really the problem with having him on a Fell Beast? I just feel like he's not going to be using it as effectively as you'd really want to be spending a 50-point monster. But I mean, I don't know, Matt. You said you had some defense for the Dwimmer Lake here. even in its defense, I guess including that, would you even put him on a fell beast? Is that a waste of points there?
So when I played him on a horse, and I guess I'll talk through kind of what options putting him on a fell beast gives you. Of course, don't armor the fell beast. For those who don't know,
70 points, I should have said. No.
Yeah, I mean, armoring a fell beast, you spend 20 points to increase the fell beast defense from 6 to 7. It ain't worth the points. You're better off, buying 3 or 4 more orcs or 4 more goblins or something like that. But all right, so first with the Dwemer Lake, I mean, you're right. He's a support wraith. He's kind of the ultimate support wraith. And you want him in an army where the other guys can be forced to spend might to deal with you. So what you want the Dwemer Lake to do is follow around your spellcasters whose spells can't be ignored. And the Black Shield Shaman is one of those, because you don't want your weapon shattered. So what the Dwemer Lake does is he just follows the Black Shield Shaman around. He gets within 6 inches of whoever the Black Shield Shaman is going to cast Shatter at, and then and then the Black Shield Shaman casts Shatter, and all of a sudden there's a 50% chance that if you've got a 3-will target, and he pitched his 4-will into that, he may very well, there's a good chance that at least one of those will is going to be wasted, and the most he's going to come out of it is with 1 will to respond. Because the way this works is, say your target said, all right, I'm going to spend 2 will to resist this shatter. The Dwemer Lake says, all right, I'm going to spend 2 will to make you spend extra. And if he makes one of those die rolls, then then his opponent has to spend all 3 will to get 2 rolls, or abandon one of his will to get only one roll. And if the Dwemer Lake makes both of his rolls, then that means the most your opponent's going to lose all of his will, and the number of dice he's going to roll is just 1. So you want to couple the Dwemer Lake with guys that can cast spells like that your opponent's just basically going to have to resist. And the Black Shield Shaman is definitely one of those. I don't think that the Angmar Shaman is one.
Kind of. I would rate the Black Shield Shaman higher, but the Angmar Shaman with Wither, I mean, you can reduce.
You can, but for the same points, you can buy a Barrow White with Paralyze, and that's another spell, and he can cast it 5 times. And that's another spell that
there's some arguments, I guess you could say, that Wither, because of its permanent nature, like Paralyze, you could recover from it. Wither, you're not recovering. Like, that's it. Once you've let that spell go through.
Yeah, that's true. But in a lot of cases, though, you can ignore it and let it go through. And I think, the Angmar Shaman casts it on a 3+, but he can only cast it 3 times. Whereas the Barrow White can go ahead and cast this thing.
Well, we'd also look at the success rate, right? Like, so Barrow White can cast 5 times, but needs a 4-up. This Shaman can cast only 3 times, needs a 3-up, and has a point of might to supplement one of the rolls. Now, granted, getting a 3 is easy to resist, but you're causing a resist test to be required. Barrow White often won't throw 1 dice at a single spell cast, whereas an Angmar Shaman will, because of this fact. So now, if you really want a spell to go off, then you're thinking 2 dice maybe. I mean, you could throw 1 at it, but you could spend 5 turns rolling 1 at a time, and we know that sometimes that doesn't go well. So I sometimes, even though I see the 5 will in the Barrow White, I don't regard it as having 5 will, because oftentimes I am spending 2 in order to make that roll really high, because whatever I'm trying to paralyze, I want paralyzed that turn. And so, I mean, whereas the Shaman, it's 3-up casting with a point of might supplement, is kind of almost harassment, burning through resources.
Yeah, I mean, but I guess here's the thing. If you get the Wither off, the target's not going to die. And so if you have, like, say, Aragorn on a horse or whatever, that charges a couple of orcs. And what you do is you move the Dwemer Lake up within 6 inches, and then you just throw a paralyze at it with one die, and if it goes off, then it's quite possible that Aragorn's going to be completely at a will. If it doesn't go off, you try it again the next turn after he charges 2 more orcs, and you can pull that off over and over again. The other thing that's interesting, and again, I didn't play the Dwemer Lake this way, but if you put the Dwemer Lake on a fell beast, and that fell beast then charges in against somebody, that becomes a situation where the paralyze, you have to resist the paralyze. Because otherwise the fell beast is going to, you're going to be on the ground and the fell beast is going to tear you apart.
I agree with the fell beast being in the list, just not on the Dwemer Lake. And that's where I was kind of like, I'd almost rather.
Yeah, but the list is built around the Dwemer Lake, and it's, it's much easier to kind of defeat a paralyze when you're spending, you can spend 1 will at it and just get it off. And you don't have to worry about the sapping that's going to happen with the Dwemer Lake.
And I think we're forgetting about like the Dwemer Lake in combat with the bat swarms is actually really good. So he doesn't need that heroic strike. He doesn't need those things.
That is a fair point.
If he gets into combat, even with one of those mega heroes like Aragorn, like boom, 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 like there's no turning back from that. Like
if you get the Dwemer Lake on fell beast in with the bat swarm. I mean, the other thing that the Dwemer Lake can do is, with Birder in the list, and even with Durbers in the list, with them striking, is he just follows around one of those guys, because you can't charge a hero into Birder and not strike. And what the Dwemer Lake does is he just follows Birder around and waits for somebody to charge into Birder, and then Birder spends his 1 might to strike, and then the other guy maybe spending 2. And you keep that game up for a while, and everybody's out of might, and things become scary. So anyway, I guess my advice would be, I'm intrigued by the Dwemer Lake on a fell beast. I have not tried it. I think it opens up some interesting options. I think he has enough figures that he can get away with it here. I would definitely take the 20 points from the Armored Fell Beast. I'd buy some guys. I would stick them in probably Birder's Warband just to give him some friends to show up with. I would also I would change the Angmar Shaman to a Barrow White. And I'm trying to see if there's anything else in here that could get you. The other thing, your point is valid, Devin, about this is a list that's designed to fight together and could run into problems with if you end up in Maelstrom of Battle. One thing I would do is, instead of having 14 orcs with shield and 14 goblins with spear, I would have 7 orcs with shield, 7 orcs with spear, and 7 goblins with shield and 6 goblins with spear. And that way, if you end up starting together, then you can have goblins supporting orcs and orcs supporting goblins. Who cares? But if they end up having to fight on their own, they can form their little mini shield wall.
Yeah, and that helps with mobility too, because then you have you're not having your orcs forced to move 5 inches each turn. You can actually go get stuff. But that is to bring that up too. I feel, I'm trying to figure out how you could add a captain, actually,
I was going to mention
Agmar
that.
captain on Warg too. Probably, I think that'd be good. I might consider probably dropping the Agmar Shaman for just a captain on Warg. I think it'll give you March, another might, and even the even the captain on Warg, coupled with the bat swarms, can do some potential damage. But
I think you want 2 other casters other than the Dwemer Lake in this list. But I do understand wanting to get a captain in this list.
So the problem is really Durbers. I've played this list. In fact, Matt, I think I played this against you in a tournament where it was 2 Gundabad Shamans, Witch King, and the Shade. And it was almost kind of a similar design as this, meaning to pummel you with magic. It was at least in a tournament where we both were attending, I think. Not having March was really brutal. And being shot at from across the board, and you're just on that slow-paced game. So I really do actually think that March might be.
How about this then? How about instead of can Angmar ally with Mordor or no? Is that a Red Alliance?
No, it's Red Alliance. Actually, the convenient. That's why you choose goblins. But I also agree with you. You need 2 casters along with the DWimmer Link. Having 3 casters at 750 points was like basically required to make sure your magic actually went through. And so I do agree that removing the Angmar Shaman is a brutal call. There is a part of me that wants to take out Birder, and I know it sounds crazy.
No, I was thinking the exact same thing. I was thinking take out Birder and throw in a shade.
Well, that's what I did, and it wasn't a bad option because it
Then you
made
get
it.
-1 to all your goblins, though.
That's
That's why I stopped playing it.
Well,
So,
I mean, another way to do this would be.
But Birder, I still think I would take out.
Well, if you're going to take out Birder, why not transform Angmar into Mordor? You still get the Dwemer Lake. Instead of the Angmar Shaman, you can take a
budget wraith.
No, take a budget wraith, right? And give him 2 might, and there's your march.
Yep.
And he's still around casting compels and transfixes that the other guy's going to have to resist and start burning up.
Actually, I like that.
Will and
I actually like that a lot.
And then you got some points in Birder to throw into something else. And I think isn't what
it loses a Spectre. Just throwing it out.
Yeah, it loses a Spectre, but you got, but he's got another ring wraith running around to compel people. Who's Shagrat?
Shagrat War Leader instead of Birder.
War Leader, I think is roughly the same points and kind of accomplish a lot of the same things that Birder does.
Yeah.
I mean, you could do a lot. I think once you decide to take out Birder, you can do a lot. You can even switch him for the same points. You'd save money for 2 more Barrow Whites.
Well, you don't need that much magical fire.
Yeah, well, I'm like, if you want to go heavy, go heavy.
The thing is,
I will say, I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with Birder in this list, because what's neat about Birder is he's a guy that an opposing hero, especially an opposing mounted hero that might get hurled, when he charges in, he has to heroic strike against, because Birders fight 6. And
I'm not against Birder in theory. I'm just saying there's some critical weaknesses in the list with regards to March
that you can fix by taking Birder out. I get
it.
And I would suggest that over anything too, because we've seen so many Angmar lists being played, and the ones that generally are with shooting armies is you don't see March and you just piecemeal them. Even with these new scenarios that came out where everything's spread out all across a 4x4 board, I just don't know. This is a good bubble of death, but you don't get that March. It's kind of hard because it's a slow moving bubble of death, not just the typical Angmar 6 inches.
I'm not even sure it's a bubble.
This is 5 inches of death, or 5 inches moving at you. It's a little.
So I guess where I'm coming out is, I think if you wanted to kind of keep the Dwemer Lake as the core of this list, I would change Angmar to Mordor, make it Dwemer Lake on a regular fell beast, a budget wraith, probably just on foot, perhaps on a horse. I'd probably put him on a horse, and you get the points from the Spectre to do that. And then Shagrat War Leader instead of Birder. And throw some guys in with Shagrat. You're going to have 25 or so extra points to spend, and then you can shuffle some guys around.
So one major disadvantage, though, just throwing this out there, is if we switch to a budget wraiths kill by transfixing generally, and therefore you need something else to do that work. You have Shagrat War Leader, but Barrow Whites theoretically can kill with anybody, and so we are reducing some of the permanent effectiveness of his magic, with the Black Shield Shaman or Wither. I mean, Wither can almost neutralize a character out of the game if you get 2 of those off. And
we are doing that, and I think you could keep this and go with paralyze, but. Remember, one of the things that you're doing is compelling people out of the line where they can get jumped on by a Dwemer Lake on Fell Beast and a Bat Swarm. And that will kill just about everything. If somebody gets compelled out of line and gets hit with a Bat Swarm and a Dwemer Lake on a Fell Beast. Because the Dwemer Lake's going to outfight anything in that situation. I think Devin is speechless.
Yeah, I was figuring. I think you kind of like killed him. To be honest, he might have had a heart attack.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
no,
I'm
but
sorry.
I like
sorry,
that,
folks. But Devin's brain has exploded.
I like that idea. I just think like there's so much potential to this list on like changing it. As is, Lewis. Like I think you said you're new to the game. This is still a good list to start with. Like you have a lot of tools to do with. There's just a couple of those fine tuning things we'd suggest. One that obviously all of us agree on is Armored Fell Beast is not worth it. 2 is the Dwimmer Lake probably needs some buddy help to go with it, but we all agree that the bat swarms are really good. I think you kind of took a Mori contingent to bring those bat swarms, which is really, really ideal. And then we're all kind of torn between adding might to it for March and how to add that, or what different mega heroes we pick, whether it's Shagrat, Birder, or even Match. Keep the shaman, bring in a paralyzer with the Barrow White. So yeah, it's good. Please let us know how you do with it. Yeah, we're always curious whenever we talk about it. We told in one episode, oh yeah, don't take these double trebuchets to somebody, and they're like, yeah, I won with it. So maybe don't take any of our advice.
I mean, I will say playing with the Dwimmer Lake was a lot of fun. And mostly it's fun because you get to torture your opponents when they see the Dwimmer Lake move in and then they realize they're going to need to spend extra points and stuff like that. So it's less fun to play against, but it is awfully fun when you're the evil genius using the Dwimmer Lake, and seeing if you can get the best out of them is I think you're gonna have some enjoyable games. All right, so okay, so that's list. So I guess the topic now is our top 3 favorite monsters.
Yeah. So actually, in all these type of topics, I like to qualify, why it is we chose these 3, like kind of like what are the metrics we were looking for when we said a top 3. Just for our viewers to know, we did actually include both monsters from the warrior category and hero category, which is really unfair to the warriors, but it had to be done. Otherwise, our list would be practically the same. So
yeah, I think we all like I'm doing it based on cost efficiency and what it does. I know you usually do the same thing. How are you gonna?
I kind of went into, without going into what my list is, I went into cost efficiency, yes, versatility. So generally, obviously, those who can do other little tricks, maneuverability I did go into, but also base size, something that has to be factored in, especially when factoring the points. Like, you look into how the base size really impacts them if their mobility is garbage, because obviously mobility mitigates base sizes, or even trampling mitigates base sizes, doesn't really make it matter as much. So yeah, there was a bunch of different little factors I went into. I will say that in the case of the catapult troll, I made an assumption that the base size would be as large as a Gundabad troll.
Wow, you picked the catapult troll?
No, I did not pick the catapult troll.
Oh man. Oh, that was going to be a
spoilers
discussion.
He was like, if I would.
If I was to pick the catapult.
Then he heard your reaction and he was like, no, I didn't do it, I swear.
I actually own a catapult.
Let me modify this on my Wait, is that bad? No. No. So I have a list here of, God, I didn't number them, but 20 monsters, 20-something monsters.
Yeah, it's hard. We're going to have a lot of honorable mentions, I think, because 3 is kind of hard to do, but I'm glad we did it.
One of the ways I solved the honorable mention problem was by keeping the flexibility to change the selections that I made based on what other people picked, so I don't repeat them. So
yeah, remember the top 5 like models. We were like Soledad, Lady of Light.
I did also try and stay away, or at least stay away from things we have discussed either frequently or recently, with one possible exception that I'm going to talk about because I think it got short shrift when we talked about it recently. But so yeah, I had a collection of different factors that factored into this. They do not necessarily reflect the frequency with which I take them, but I think they're going to be fun. So
yeah, and for viewers, like, we don't know each other's top 3 too. With all these we never know each other, so it's like we're always like, oh, why did you pick that?
Yeah.
All right, should we get into it?
A couple surprise moments in some of the other top lists. So
I have to say I'm particularly interested to see which ones Rainier is picking, because as far as I'm aware, I have never seen him play anything with the monster keyword.
Yeah.
Actually, that's true. Yeah, now that I think about it, yeah, you've never done that.
Because I don't need to. I'm just joking. Why bring a monster when you can bring 68 models?
Terror.
Yeah, it's true. Like the Flame of Udin, when I walk into the room, well, it's probably my stench because I don't shower, but you see all the flames like just go in the back and stuff. Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Well, there was that time in Philly when you set the guy on fire.
That's true. But hey, I was the TO, so it was allowed.
We don't talk about that here.
Yeah, that's right. There are Fifth Amendment issues, so we're not going to talk about that.
We'll zip it.
All right, so I guess I'll start. Why not? And so I'll go into it. Yeah. So basically, I try to factor in points efficiency. So here's the thing: monsters with might are just so superior to monsters without might that I ended up shoving a lot of the guys without might out of this competition pretty quickly, unfortunately. So anyone who was looking forward to those, the ogre's probably the only one who even semi makes the potential chance of hitting a top 10. And the only reason for that is because the affordability of the ogres and the spam ability of them. But other than that, really it stuck with the heroes. Then going into a little bit of more exposition here of why it is I chose what I chose. There were some that so if any newer viewer here is listening and you're thinking, well, top 3 monsters should just also be the most powerful, well, that would put Smaug automatically on everyone's list. But reasonably, he's actually not effective for winning games, which is why you can't just simply pick what is the biggest, baddest thing you can throw on the tabletop. It's not really going to work that way. So there is a certain amount of points efficiency. So some of you might be surprised that the Balrog did not make my list. For any of you listening, you often will think, okay, Devin hates the Balrog.
Because I was going to say, because you're an anti-Balrogist.
But it's not because the Balrog is broken. I just don't think he is fun. But he is a very powerful model. But I actually don't think that the Balrog is the most points efficient. I tried to almost look at it in the sense of, what if I could take any of these models in my Gondor list? And I say Gondor specifically because once you start adding in my Goblin Town list, well, then a lot of things start working when you have hordes backing up your, shoring up your numbers. So I'm like, all right, my run-of-the-mill Rohan or whatever, foot Rohan, what monsters would I want to take kind of thing. And a Balrog really wouldn't make it to that kind of list. It also doesn't have a lot of versatility and such. So we'll go into my number 1. You'll kind of see where this can kind of go.
Are we going number 1 or are we going 3 up?
No. We should. We're all going to do our 3s.
Calm down, Devin. Devin goes to dinner and he just starts slurping the banana pudding, and you're like, "Hey, chill, eat your veggies first."
Now, this one, as I'm kind of talking, it's okay, I made a top 5 list, and I'm kind of like, all right. This one obviously doesn't make any sense to say, in my Gondor list, because it's the Goblin King. Now, why did I choose the Goblin King? All right, so the Goblin King, 40 mil base is a massive advantage, but a lot of his powers, or whatever you want to call him.
Tell us about the Goblin King. Tell us his stats.
Tell us how he's broken.
Here's why the Goblin King's ridiculous. So obviously,
if you want, I can read them out because I had my book open to the Goblin King. Waiting for my turn.
Go ahead, read them off, man.
All right, so the Goblin King, he is a goblin. He is a monster, so he qualifies. He is an infantry hero. He is a hero of legend. He is 130 points. He is move 6, fight 6. He has a 5+ shoot value, which actually will matter. He has a strength of 5, so a little on the wimpy side for a monster, but he'll do. He's a defensive 5, not the greatest defense, but we'll get to that. He has 3 attacks, 3 wounds. He has a courage of 3, not the best courage, but he's a goblin. He has 3 might, 2 will, 1 fate. He comes with a 2-handed pick. He can heroic strike. He has heroic strength, and he has heroic challenge. His special rules are burly, which means with his 2-handed pick, he is always going to be getting a +1 to wound. He is a cave dweller, which means I guess he can, climb walls a little better than other people can. He's resistant to magic, which is great because he's always going to get that free die to supplement his 2 will, and he causes terror, which isn't surprising. His special rules are relentless advance. So this is the trample effect that Devin was talking about. When he charges into combat, He can pass through friendly goblin models when he moves. Each goblin and by the way, for those of you thinking about allying, this is not just Goblin Town goblins. This is any goblin. So he can do this to Moria goblins as well. He moves any goblin he moves through suffers a strength 3 hit. Any goblin he ends his move on is automatically slain. But basically it means he can charge through his own troops to get into combat. So when you think that you've safely walled off the Goblin King from your hero that charged into combat, no, you haven't. He can charge through his own guys and still get into you. There is a caveat here saying that he cannot be compelled or commanded over his own models.
Which is huge.
Yeah, which is huge. Note to self, it does not say he cannot be like a fell light within him over his own models.
Yep, that is true.
Which, if he's got a courage of 3, is kind of a bad thing. So that's an interesting thing you can do with the Goblin King. His next rule is Blubbery Mass. Every time the Goblin King is wounded, roll a d6. On a 3+, the wound is ignored, which is great because you can throw him into combat and he can just tank, not because of his high defense roll, but because he can just ignore his wounds on a 3+. Magical powers and elven blades ignore this ability, so he doesn't like to fight elves or wizards. And then the last rule is Goblin Projectile. In the shoot phase, if there's a friendly goblin model in base contact with the Goblin King and neither engaged in combat, the Goblin King may make a shooting attack with a range of 12. He's probably not going to hit without spending some might because the odds are, as long as he's moved, he's only hitting on a 6. But, you roll a 5 or whatever, and you really need to get that Ring Wraith off his Fellbeast, you can do that. Because once you hit, the shot is resolved at strength 8 and will automatically knock prone any model that it hits. So you can knock folks off of horses.
Which is already silly because ends throwing rocks don't have that same effect.
Yep, that's right.
These giant Isengard boulders just like bounce off you, but you toss a goblin, it knocks out a Ring Wraith off its Fellbeast.
You know what it is? It's the English that he puts on the goblin when he throws. It's all in the wrist.
Exactly.
The spin he puts on the goblin.
And some throwing technique. But for anyone hearing this, this guy is kind of absurd a little bit. His strength 5 is mitigated completely by +1 to wound. Resistance to magic, I didn't talk about that. That is another huge thing to have in a monster. A lot of your base level monsters who are just warriors, not heroes, are often not considered in my top 3 because magic just takes them out of the game pretty much permanently until you want to deal with them. Resistance to magic is a massive factor into a lot of decisions I made. You have, relentless advance. A lot of times, one of the biggest problems is you can easily block off a monster. Well, you can't block this guy off. In fact, he wants to be behind the horde and pick his fights, which is very unique for a monster. And combine that with the fact that he's on a 40 mil base. Because if he was on a 60 mil base, it would be a little bit hard to make this work without murdering a huge bunch of your own troops. But,
giant swaths of goblins.
Like just carving paths in your own army. But on a 40 mil, this works pretty impressively well. The Blubbery Mass rule, I don't know why Games Workshop has a fascination with being fat as an armor save, but
we will not comment on that.
Yeah.
Except for noting that in the Games Workshop world, it is good to be fat.
Yes, it is good to be fat, and so and then the Goblin Projectile once again. Doesn't really make any sense that he knocks things down, but he does. And so that has to be factored in. So there's a lot of versatility, a lot of things that go in for this guy. The Fight 6 is immensely helpful for him dealing with all heroes, having the Heroic Strike. I mean, he's just good. And then on top of all of it, he leads 18 troops. I mean,
and you got to think Gollum too. I think Gollum really,
lead 17
you
troops.
Think
and
he's
Gollum.
Too good. Like here comes Gollum with the ring.
To factor in Gollum, actually, even not factoring in Gollum. So that's a good point. But even not factoring him in, you're right. Well, if you do factor him in, he's absolutely absurd. But I tried not to because, in fact, like I said, I always thought of him as if I stuck them in Gondor. Now, with him, I have to reword it a little bit to assume that all references to goblin is now man or something like that. But just a generic bare bones list. Who are the best monsters? But you are right. Because I mean, Gollum makes pretty much any monster silly. Like, if I had Gollum with my Witch King, it's just hard to do because Gollum is in this list.
He needs the Goblin King to, basically the way I think of it is you have the Goblin King, who's the bully, and then you have Gollum, who's the bully's little friend, who runs around and charges into heroes and makes the and when Gollum puts on the ring, they both move through their own troops. So like nobody's safe from them. They're just hanging out behind the lines. They wait till somebody charges in. Then Gollum throws on the ring, and the Goblin King tramples people, and you go from there.
So that is my third pick. And so Rainier, what do you got?
So mine was actually the Goblin King, so I'll choose someone else. So I always pick based off the same credentials that Devin said, like cost efficiency, what does it do for the army, and is it worth it for the points, basically. But for this one, I'm just going to go with the big bad boy, Sauron the Great.
Use my number 4.
Oh yeah. I think you have to, right? So let me read his profile off. So he's fight 9, strength 8, D10, 4 attacks, 5 wounds, courage 7, 3 might, 6 will, +1 per turn, and fate has a special rule. His 1 ring, so of course he gets priority. You see a lot of Golems, Bilbos, Isildurs with rings. If he has the ring, he gets priority with the ring. Sauron does not follow the normal rules for the 1 ring. Instead, whilst he wields 1 ring, whenever Sauron loses his last wound or would be removed as a casualty, roll a d6. On a 2+, the power of the ring sustains him, and he has a single wound restored. During the fight phase, Sauron will make this roll for each wound suffered that would cause him to be removed as a casualty. Sauron may use might to influence this rule. So this is amazing. We went back to like might on a hero. That's fantastic. He can might this up so he doesn't die. Also, the might allows him to do crazy things. His heroic actions are channeling, strike, strength, and challenge. Special rules, ancient evil, resistant to magic, and terror. So he's going to cause everything to be really like scary in his proximity. Another passive special rule is the Dark Lord. If Sauron is in your force, he must be your leader. Obvious. Lord of the Rings is a passive rule. Sauron can spend a single point of will each turn without reducing his store. So like the whole wizard profile. And then he gets 2 special brutal attacks. One is unstoppable. Instead of making strikes as normal, Sauron can instead make 1 strength hit on every enemy model involved in the same fight, including spear and pike supports. So that's that scene from the movie where you just have him like swooping everything, like going wild. That's really good because you will usually surround him. Another one, the Flames of Evil. Sauron makes a single strike against a single infantry or cavalry model engaged in the fight. Of course, it's another brutal special attack. If the model is a cavalry model, then only the rider will be affected. If the model is fortunate enough to survive, even if they did not suffer a wound, that's really good right there, because folks usually fade out with those. Then the target is also set ablaze. Remember that this also inflicts 1 strength 9 hit on the poor model that Sauron now has in his grasp. I like that wording, on the poor model. But you have so many set ablaze rules where it's like, if they're wounded, they're set ablaze. Sauron's like, I don't care. You're just set ablaze. So right off the bat, he's a hero of legend as well. That's pretty good. When I say his hero of legend, I would also want to say the army bonus, which I think does apply to this profile, is the power of the ring could not be undone. He can lead up to 24 models. Additionally, a force that consists of solely of models from Barad-dûr is never considered broken if Sauron has 3 or more wounds remaining. Should Sauron have 2 or fewer wounds remaining, the army will break as normal. Should Sauron be slain, the army will immediately be broken. So that is huge.
I actually didn't include that in his profile. Not that it takes him away from my list, but I tried to remove the army bonuses from my mind.
Yeah, I think it's hard though, because like this one, you never take Sauron without this. You know what I mean?
Well, see, that's the thing, is you really can't take Sauron outside of Barad-dûr ever, and for that reason, yeah, you lose this bonus. I mean, I don't know though. I think for 400 points, he's still pretty efficient in what he does.
Yeah, because we haven't even gone over his like magical rules. And for 400 points, we think like when you're going to point sync that much into one hero, of course he can't fly. His base size also is size of a horse. Like that's key for getting places. But when you're going to point sync 400 points, which is like half of your army in an 800 point list that you usually see, it's good to know that they have to focus on him. they can't just piecemeal the orcs and then break him.
That is a good point. I would say without that rule, one of the reasons he was never played before is because of that problem. You could avoid him and just fight the rest of the army. Yeah. It's actually a fundamental problem with even the Balrog, is that you can ignore him.
And I think he's
easily for a combat every turn.
He's a lot better than the Balrog in my opinion. And like, I think you can't ignore him with that special rule. And also the might and stuff, like the Balrog doesn't always roll 6s, you know, like Sauron has, the Balrog only has 3 attacks or 4 attacks.
4. They both have 4.
Oh, 4, but still Sauron is just menacing. And you throw Sauron against someone, it's just like, this is terrifying. You know what I mean? They heroic defense. Sweet. Bop, you're set ablaze. Like, I don't even have to wound you. You're set ablaze.
Different things. The one thing Sauron doesn't have that the Balrog has is the additional threat range that the whip gives him.
Oh, but I'm going to get into that though. Magic? Like, I think his magic is extreme. This is why, like, without the magic, with the bonus, I'd be like, maybe with the magic, I'm like, this is actually what, like,
it's the magic
people mistake
into the top 10.
Yeah. Like, so let me go over his magic. So, everything besides Instill Fear is 18-inch range. So that includes Drain Courage on a 2+, Transfix on a 2+, Compel on a 3+, Instill Fear on a 3+, 3 inches, Chill Soul on a 4+, and Sap Will at a 4+. I think that is what makes him extremely terrifying.
Combined with the free magical cast of turn.
Yeah, because if free magical.
Then once again, I wouldn't even really factor the magic into.
And he's resistant to magic too. So it's like you can't do much. But if you see, like, we talk about Saruman, excuse me, and like the old Council Wise like list, like his range of 18 inches or whatever, like hitting people. I think Sauron at 18 inches, that's like a 24-inch range where he can be like, boom, you're wounded. I see him being played against like Eagles, and it's like, boom, like, you're wounded. I'm just taking out Eagles here and there, just nilly-willy.
But you do have to do it a couple times.
Yeah, that's true. But also, like, think about this with the new special rules for the horses and magical powers. He can literally be like, Aragorn, your horse is dead, or like,
no. Don't think that's true.
Or is that just Black Dart?
Black Dart, yeah. Black Dart's this weird gray area, which for anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about, it's an FAQ where Black Dart specifically is not allowed. It doesn't target a model. It targets whatever part component of the. It's weird.
But, yeah, if you guys want to hear rage, just listen to previous.
Expect that to be un-FAQ'd. I cannot imagine after several tournaments of that being abused that will stay in effect.
Yeah, the theme of like our first episodes was more Signal Tower. The theme of now is like less Black Darts. but to say that about Sauron, like why I chose him and like why I guess I would actually now put him in my top 3 because y'all picked Goblin King, is that his threat. You don't need to use his magic every single game. He's not like, like a caster, but the ability to have this monster that causes your force not to break, you have to engage him, and he destroys everything when he comes in combat with. He semi-ignores heroic defense too, and then to have these casts that are cast like on 3+ or 4+ at an 18-inch range, that is just phenomenal. So like, this is my only time where I'd be like, buy the Ferrari, like, you deserve it, it'll be worth it. Everything else, I'm always like, find a budget, see what it's going to do for your list, and make it multiple. Have multiple roles, but I just think Sauron and Barad-dûr is like
the only reason I hesitate, and this is the whole Balrog versus Sauron debate. The only reason I hesitate is when I have played Sauron, I find it is very hard to get him where you need him to be in close combat. Because yes, he can reach out with spells, but you can't get 400 points back by casting Chill Soul every turn. You have to get him into combat with something. And what the Balrog has is he has the whip and the free heroic combat that he gets to call every turn once he actually gets into combat, that you can keep him kind of moving forward. And Sauron doesn't have that. He's only got the 3 might. You're probably not going to be spending that to call heroic combats. So he is very vulnerable to the, all right, this turn you get to fight this one idiot who passed his courage test and was dumb enough to come and fight you. And next turn, you're going to get this idiot who is dumb enough to pass his courage test and is now going to come fight you.
Fortunately, Barge helps with that also.
Barge helps, right? But then you're not even killing the one guy, right? Then you're killing the guy, you're moving, and maybe you're only moving an inch, and maybe you're only moving into one more guy, then you kill that guy. And you haven't necessarily helped yourself very much. It's
I think hard. That's probably why he like tinkered on like not quite getting in the top 4, I would just say, with all of us, like, but it's that thing that holds him back for 400 points. I agree with that. But I don't know, like I saw there's Samir who plays him for my group, and like if you go to like an event where it's just fun, like he just wrecks. And even Tim Hines played him at Deadliest Heroes at Nova when I wasn't able to attend that, and I just saw Tim surrounded by a whole bunch of heroes, and this poor guy looked so disheveled. He was just like, who was playing Tim? He was like, I can't kill him.
I can't kill him.
Like
once you go into the all hero world, then I think it's a very different equation.
Unfortunately, that format died with the Nazgul from Dulguldur.
Yeah,
like as soon as they came out.
I think it's considerable because in a lot of parts of Europe, you see a lot of these like super elite forces that are like a bubble of death, and they have to come get you, like Boromir, Lady of Light, Fountain Court Guard or something, just all do to come into you. Like, I don't know, maybe it'd be interesting to see him play against those armies.
I'm actually interested now that Matt has heard our number 3 pick. What's your adjusted number 3 pick?
Well, so this was actually going to be my original number 3 pick. And I'm going to stick with it. And I just want to caveat by saying this is not my third most favorite monster, but I do want to make sure that I embrace diversity, and I chose a warrior monster. And the one I chose was the Cave Troll, who is probably my favorite amongst the warrior monsters. The Cave Troll is move 6, fight 6, strength 6, defense 6, 3 attacks, 3 wounds, 3 courage. So he's pretty much, when you think of a monster, those are kind of monster stats. And he has the 40 mil base, which is, as Devin said, so important, as being able to, both get him into combat and not get him surrounded by 16 enemy heroes who are going to strike up and slaughter him at one time. His war gear is a spear, so he can actually fight for the back rank if you really want him to. But you're probably not going to keep that, because one of the options he has is he may swap his. Oh, by the way, he's 75 points base. He may swap his spear for a hand and a half hammer at 5 points base, or at additional 5 points, which, because he has the Burly special rule, means he's going to get +1 on all his to wound rolls, which is really important for a monster that does not have might to bump up that critical to wound roll. I think you always spend that 5 points. You always take that hand and a half hammer, and you always go in with the +1 to wound, and he kind of becomes a scary guy for 80 points. You can also get a troll chain for 5 points. The troll chain counts as a throwing weapon, a range of 3 inches and a strength of 5. I'm not sure that's really worth spending the points on. His other special rules are, of course, terror and throw stones with a range of 12 inches and a strength of 8. As we noted before, unlike the Goblin King, who with strength 5 is throwing a goblin, knocking people off of horses, this burly cave troll with strength 6 is throwing stones, doing strength 8 hits, but not knocking people off of horses.
And can't move to throw it.
Yes, and he can't move to throw. He has to be stationary. But, if you want to move to throw, take the troll chain. If you want to do that, you can. But anyway, the cave troll, I think, is a useful monster. With his 40 mil base means you can put him kind of in the middle of a warband with guys on his flanks, so he can't be surrounded. He's in a position where he's not going to get hit if you keep him properly surrounded. He's not going to get hit by more than one hero at a time, and he can fight one hero at a time, because he's probably not going to go down if he loses the fight, and if he wins the fight, he can really mess up that one hero. And I think he is worth it at 80 points. So he's a guy that I do take from time to time if I'm going to use a non-hero monster. The one caveat I would say is What you have to be really careful about the cave troll is if the other guy has something like compel or a fell light is in him that can pull him out from the battle line, you want to make sure that he is properly walled in so that he can't be pulled out, but not so walled in that you can't actually get him into the fight, which is a tricky dance to try and play.
I like that you chose a warrior model because there are really good, especially for price efficiency. I would say, yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't put in my top 3, but I do like the model a lot. I know we talked about this when we reviewed a Moria list in who was it, Will Champions episode, and Matt and I were like, keep the cave or replace, I think, the drum with a cave troll. So like I really like cave trolls in those lists that it's like, oh, they have a cave troll. Like it's iconic and also it's just a surprise because they kill quite a lot. They're pretty good. But yeah, I think that's all I really have to say about it. Like it's cool. I wouldn't put it in mine, but like it's really good take.
I mean, it wouldn't be in my top 3.
I mean, to be clear, it's not technically in my top 3 either, but I want to make sure we talked about one non-hero monster. So that's why I put it in there.
Yeah, I think him and the ogre would probably qualify for the best warrior models.
He is definitely worth his points now. I think the reason you don't see a cave troll as much is he's overshadowed by so many awesome options that the Moria and Angmar list can field, but he is certainly worth his points. So I guess I'll go into my second choice here, especially for the sake of time. So my second choice is it was actually a toss-up between Spider Queen and Gwahir, and I kind of chose Gwahir. Mostly because, so here I'm looking at, they both have 60 mil bases, which is bad in my opinion for a monster, which is weird to say because they're almost all 60 mil. But essentially that's a fundamental weakness. So you want to get around that fact. Spider Queen does that very efficiently moving around. And also the Spider Queen does have extra utility in the broodlings, which is huge and can't be understated, which made the choice hard. But being able to fly over models in this game specifically Lord of the Rings, I mean, it's such an immense power. Like even the bat swarms, or what do they call it? The Gundabad bats, or anything that flies in this game causes so many problems, and it just really, really is something to work with. So I chose Gwahir over just a Great Eagle, mostly because of the slight resistance to magic. I mean, obviously it doesn't actually have resistance to magic, but just that ability to resist magic is big. Having might in a flying character means that your threat radius is everywhere across the battlefield. And fight 8. I'm not going to go into the profile in depth just for the sake of time, but I mean, essentially has heroic strike, has heroic defense, which is another really big deal. It's just, when you have a flying monster for 150 points, and that can lead, but it doesn't lead anything great. But once again, I try to think of it as in a Gondor force. And so that would be huge if he was in a Gondor force, but actually much better. But, can lead, hero ledge. I mean, I find that the survivability combined with the offensive power of this model is one of the reasons I wanted to include it in my top 3. And the survivability itself, combined with the slight edge of maneuverability, despite the fact that a slight decrease in versatility over the Spider Queen, is why I chose number 2. But I mean, if anyone were to wonder why other flying models didn't make it, it's mostly due to cost efficiency in combination with that flight. So dragons are just simply not cost efficient for what they do with flight. And then you have, that's really it. I don't think any much else. I'm looking at my list of things that fly in the monster category, and there isn't much. So it's really just,
I like it. I'll probably say it soon. So I'm going to save what I'm going to say about it for later. But yeah,
I think didn't Gwahir show up on our, I actually think Gwahir is one of the best models, period.
Yeah, I think I said Gwahir as 2 or 3 for the most essential models to bring. Yeah. And if y'all want to watch that episode, like we go like big into detail on why that is.
And obviously the other big one that flies is Felbeast, but I figure we're all going to talk about Felbeast at least one point in this podcast.
Yeah, and we're the Goblin King can toss them up. But okay,
but not armored Felbeasts.
Not armored
Felbeasts.
So should I go into my number 2?
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't have the book with me in Korea. So Matt, can you please read off for me the Spider Queen?
You need the Spider Queen? Okay, hang on a second here.
So yeah, my number 2 is the Spider Queen.
Hey, I mean, I respect it. It's like, I'm actually curious why you would choose the Spider Queen over Guahir. Unless Guahir's your number 1 pick, which then I'd be shocked why FL Beast didn't make it to your list.
Well, we'll find out. All right, so the Spider Queen, 115 points. She is a spider. She's from Mirkwood. She's a monster. She's infantry. She's a hero. She's a hero of valor. She moves 10 inches. She has fight 6. She has a shoot skill of 6+, which I think never comes into play. She's strength 6, defense 4, 2 attacks, 3 wounds, courage 4. She has 3 might, 3 will, and no fate. She has large venomous fangs. They're very sharp. She has heroic strike. She has heroic defense. She has the special rules of monstrous charge, so she gets 1 extra die on the charge. She has swift movement, which, if I remember correctly, means she ignores terrain, including being able to do things like run up walls and stuff like that. She causes terror. She has venom, which means she rerolls to wound. And she has the progeny special rules. So during any point in her move phase, including the end, the Spider Queen may expend any number of remaining will points to summon a broodling. For each will point expended in this way, place a single broodling base anywhere within 3 inches of the Spider Queen, but not in base contact with any enemy models. Broodlings may move and charge on a turn in which they were summoned. So what the Spider Queen can do is she can run out 10 inches, spend a point of will, and then the broodlings again go 10 inches. Broodlings are not counted when working out if a force is broken. So the broodling stats, just for the sake of completeness, are they also move 10 inches. They are fight 2, strength 3, defense 3, 1 attack, 1 wound, and 2 courage. So with that, Rainier, tell us.
Yeah, basically, I just like Spider Queen for all she does for points efficiency. You usually see her allied. I mean, I've seen her with pure spiders. I wouldn't do that. You see her allied with lists like Moria, Agmar, these different things where it's like, oh, here's like a 12-inch range, go over terrain or through terrain and destroy stuff. I just really like what she does. Her mobility. She plays as like a hero assassin. She plays the objective game really good. She's really good at trapping people. That's what the broodlings do. You usually typically go into combat and then like boom, spam the broodlings. They pop behind the person and trap them. And yeah, like the typical battle line, I feel like is afraid of her because she can hit the flanks really well and do a really nasty hurl. Even the broodlings can go hit the back of the ranks too and trap some models and stuff. But yeah, I just think she's simple. You guys probably see her all the time at tournaments. Her objective game, what she can do, and her multiple roles in the span of a tournament just kind of set her over edge, because I never see a tournament where she's not doing something, or I never go up against her and I'm like not uneasy about it, because she just, with the range of what she does, it's quite terrifying.
I would say without swift movement and broodlings, she definitely drops significantly.
Oh, for sure.
The broodlings in the objective play is nuts. I mean, the fact that they move 10.
I mean, that's like saying, well, without magic, Sauron's not that great.
No, but
you can literally like.
That's what we did say earlier, is that it is the magic that puts him on the list. And I get it. It's like, okay, without any component. Like,
it's just those things I think are inherent to the Spider Queen, I guess.
And you're correct.
But like, think what is that scenario? Like, not domination, the one where there's 5 and they're all 10 inches away from each other.
So the
capture and control, you can literally just broodling at the end of the game, and then boom, 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 you have literally 4 objectives like that, or you're contesting 4 objectives like that. It's wild. Reconnoiter, just everything is it's just amazing.
So I just wanted to say it, Matt Booster, because there are similar models like the Cave Drake, for example. Very fast, more durable than this one, same 5 value, much more durable. I mean, by a long shot. And so why is that not played? Why is it that the Spider Queen ranks higher? Well, it is because of swift movements, allowing you to run around walls and whatnot, but also the combined with the broodlings and that versatility of objective play. Yeah. And that's why I was kind of going at that, because there's just other models that are kind of vaguely similar to it, but didn't get selected.
And like, that's what I think all of our monsters are like. You'll probably see And I almost did put the Fell Beast actually in my list, but like I assumed all y'all will, and now no one's doing it. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, but even I looked at the Cave Drake, right? And I was like, we talked about him. I think he's just amazing, but it's that 12-inch range of her that gets her wherever you want on the field. And that spooks so many people because they never know where she's gonna come. And like that's what I mean about flanks. Like you can literally hit a flank.
You mean 10-inch range?
Oh, 10-inch, yes, sorry, excuse me.
So fast. Like if you think about those little spiders, I mean, they're tiny. They're like they represent like it to scale. There's something like I don't know this big, and they're moving just as fast as something with legs as massive. Like,
do you know how terrifying that would be in real life?
They are terrifyingly fast.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, their speed alone would freak me the hell out.
Yeah, they like suck, but it's just like they're coming at you fast.
They're really fast.
Yeah, they're coming at you with the speed of a horse.
Yeah.
I mean, the slingshot ability with those is just incredible, where it's like you move her 10 inches, then you pop a broodling into existence 3 inches away. The broodling's got a 40 mil base, I think. So that adds another 1.5 inches onto it. And then it moves 10 inches and can charge. So, it's like a 2-foot range in one turn that you can get somebody into combat with.
Yeah, I've even used her like them as blocking, like just toss them in, block an avenue, and it's like, oh, the warriors can't come into the queen, or even if you have a hero, they have to heroic combat to get into the queen. But also the 3 might on her is just like, whoa, like, you know what I mean?
I will say this about the Spider Queen, and this is why she's not on my list, is using the Spider Queen requires lots of practice, and I for one have not had it. I think I played with her once, and like I realized after playing with her that I'm not getting the most out of this model, and because it really requires you to kind of know how all her special rules work and remember okay, I've got broodlings and when do I throw them out and stuff like that. And the one time I played with her, I was like, I need to do this about a half dozen more times before I think I can get the most out of this figure.
And she is very weak. Like she is like a glass cannon. Like I've seen her be shot out before she even gets into combat. So you got to be careful with that. Or many people just throw her in like straight into like a battle line, like, here I come. And then she dies. So you do got to be careful.
This is not a figure for beginners.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Matt. So your adjusted number 2 slot.
My adjusted number 2 slot, which is also not a figure for beginners. This is one we talked about recently, but I think we kind of gave it a bit of short shrift, so I want to talk about it again. And that's the Watcher in the Water.
I knew you were going to do it, Matt. I knew you were going to do it. I was like, I'm not going to do it because I know Matt's going to do it because he is loving this Watcher lately.
Yeah. All right. So the Watcher in the Water is 200 points. It is the sole figure that has the Kraken keyword. It is move 4, but we'll talk about that. Fight 6, strength 6, defense 6, 6 attacks, 6 wounds, courage 3, 1 might, 5 will, and 1 fate. War gear is a whole bunch of tentacles. Heroic action is heroic strength. Special rules are Harbinger of Evil. So that is the, I think that's the 15-inch -1.
12.
Oh, no, that's the 12. Okay. That's the 12-inch -1. So just like a ring wraith. Resistant to magic and terror. From the deep. So I'm not going to read. The rules are long, but the from the deep rule allows you during each priority phase, after priority has been rolled, you basically get to say, all right, I'm going to try and bring the Watcher in. And if you roll a 3+, the Watcher's ready to come in. And the Watcher can basically show up anywhere on the board, including in the middle of the other guy's battle line. And
that's a key component of how you deploy it, too.
Yes, it is. And we'll talk about this in tactics a bit on the Watcher. The next thing is many tentacles. Basically, it starts with 6 attacks. If you get 3 wounds, your number of attacks goes down to 3. But 6 attacks, that's pretty good. Then the other major thing here is tentacles. And so the tentacles shoot. And what they can do is they have a range of 6 inches. They're like throwing weapons, except you can use them even when you are in combat. They have a strength of 3. There are no in the way rolls ever required, which means you can pull. Well, and what you do is if you hit somebody and you do not kill him, you pull him into combat with the Watcher. So you can reach out and grab people out of another combat and suck them into your combat, or you can hide behind the lines of your goblins or whomever you're with reach over, grab a poor hapless hero that is somewhere behind the lines, pull him into combat with a Watcher. And the tactic that's often used is you buy a couple bat swarms to follow the Watcher around, and you have the bat swarm maneuver into a position between the Watcher and the target that it wants to grab. And then you reach out, you grab the target, you pull him in, and because you move the target into position with the Watcher at the closest available point to the line that they're coming in, they'll end up being in combat with both the bat swarm and the Watcher, which means the Watcher is going to have a higher fight value than your target and is going to have 6 dice, so is pretty much going to win that combat. And once you get 6 attacks in on somebody at strength 6, it's probably going to kill them too, especially since if you do this right, you can engineer a trap. There's 2 other special rules. There's drag to the depth. There's water dweller. They only really matter when you have a bunch of water on the board, so we won't talk about them now. But there are 2 basic tactics to using the Watcher, both of which are fun for the guy playing the Watcher. The one is kind of what we just discussed, where you have some bat swarms following this guy around. The Watcher sits behind your own line, and it uses its tentacles to reach over the battle line, grab whomever it wants to from the other side, pulls them in and kills them. And then you rinse, repeat on this. So next turn, he's going to pull somebody else in and kill them. And so on. And you can kind of basically pick a hero a turn and erase them using this tactic. The other ability that the Watcher has is the ability to kind of deep strike and show up in people's lines. And so what you can do is you can have the Watcher show up in the middle of somebody's lines, and then there's a rule in here that allows you to scatter people when the Watcher shows up, and you can scatter people into really bad positions where they will instantly die. The downside of this is that it often means that your Watcher is going to die, because one of the things that the Watcher comes with is an enormous base. And once the Watcher kind of teleports into does a deep strike thing and teleports into the middle of the enemy's battle line, you got to think that just about everybody and its friend is going to be attacking the Watcher in the next turn, and you may well lose it. But there are certain circumstances when you want to have that Watcher teleport into the enemy's lines and knock the enemy's general into the position where you could kill it and take it out, and then go from there. So anyway, thoughts on the Watcher. This is another figure, by the way, that is not for beginners. I have a little more experience with the Watcher at this point than I have with the Spider Queen, so I think I'm starting to scratch the surface of the Watcher's potential. But once you kind of figure out all the tricksy stuff this Watcher can do, it's a lot of fun.
I would say the exact same thing. I'm kind of in your boat, to where I don't have experience with the Watcher, so I have I've seen its potential and stuff, but for me, I think the 200-point sink for something that really needs, like Matt said, you need to really fine-tune the sucker, play it multiple times to find its potential, because it does have 1 might and no strike. So if you don't get the bat swarm in with it, it can die pretty fast to a hero that can rogue strike. And then its attacks go down as it loses wounds, and it has 6 wounds. So if you do tap it out with shooting, or even with some heroes and stuff.
They have changed it now. So it used to be for every wound it took, it lost an attack. Now it's basically rule of halves. So you have to it has 6 attacks until it takes 3 wounds, and then it has 3 attacks. So
that actually makes it a lot better.
Yeah.
It's a lot better.
Gives it more staying power.
Better. Yeah.
Yeah. So I like that it's got weaknesses that you can definitely work around, like Matt said. I like the idea that you said, to have them in your back lines and just pick people peekaboo. I got you, Aragorn. Here's a bat swarm with me, and I'm going to kill you.
That's oftentimes how it's used, is you just bring them in, and you basically, because when you bring them in, you can bring them over your own line. So it's as Matt said, it becomes a trap. They're now separated from their army and brought into where your army is, in the middle of it, with a Watcher.
But I feel like this, why it didn't get on my list, is you do need to know all those tricks to use it, because a lot of people sometimes just throw the Watcher, they come out of the deep and just try to wreck a whole army, and they just get surrounded and killed.
You see that 6 attacks, and you're like, oh, you can destroy everyone.
Yeah, oh, here I come. As then you pop up, and then
Boromir's
no rogue strike, and you're surrounded. Yeah. I kill you. So there is that sense that, I think he's just like the Spider Queen. You need a lot of practice. For me, 200 points, you need to definitely get a lot out of it and stuff because it is. I don't know. We always say glass cannon, glass hammer. This is like a glass machine gun, but you got to make sure everything's all there.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that I don't know. Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, the thing about the Watcher, I guess, is you have to play a bunch of games with it. But it is the reason it's on my list is the Watcher in the Water is one of those figures, and there aren't very many of these. That when you walk up to a table and you've got the Watcher of the Water or the Watcher in the Water in your list, the other guy looks at it, you know that the entire game is going to be about that figure.
Yeah.
And there's only a couple other figures like that. Sauron is one, the Balrog is another, and I think the Watcher is one where when you walk up to the table, it's like, okay, everybody knows this game is going to be about this figure and how well I use it and how well the opponent figures out a way to counter it.
Which also is good in the sense that, like, if you're a good player like Matt is, like, they're gonna think that, but you also have other toys to play with, potentially a cave troll in there, potentially black shamans shattering or doing crazy shenanigans, and potentially like just a horde of models to do a lot of things. So like I feel like that is also a bonus of a Watcher, is just everyone's focused on them or her, whatever it is. They're just like looking at it like, oh, what's it gonna do? And then before you know it, you're just winning the objective game with other stuff.
Well, I guess I'll go into my final pick. Just for the sake of time, I'm not going to go into the profile of it, but I think most people probably know what it is. I did just be bland and boring and pick the Witch King on Felonies. I mean, when we're talking about versatility and viability, and 60 mil base, I mean, flight, the 3 attacks, and I'm assuming you've kitted the Witch King out, but even the fact that I even can say that, the fact that you can kit the Witch King out into various different flexibilities and such is also laid into its strength. It kind of almost speaks for itself how good he is. I mean, Hero of Legend, all that stuff. I mean, like I said, what are your thoughts on why he should not be number one monster in the game?
I think he should be there. Oh no, you go ahead.
All right. Well, my reason for not making him the number one monster there is because Galadriel, Lady of Light, is the number one most likely figure you're going to run into, and she is a hard counter to the Witch King.
Well, no, I guess people would pick her regardless of the Witch King. So.
I'm just glad you did it though, because like I kept the Fell Beast would have been my third, and I kept them out because I thought someone would talk about like a Fell Beast or like the Witch King and stuff.
Good thing we didn't think like you, otherwise we would have not said the Fell Beast.
Yeah, exactly. We're all trying to meta each other, but we're all just confused. We're just like, what's going on?
No one selected any Goblin King, Walker, or Witch King.
I like him there because we talk about versatility. He has so much versatility in that list. You can use him as a caster, a troop killer, or a hero killer. And we talk about Lady of Light, of course. Yeah, you're going to see her, and she messes up a ton. Like she just messes up everything, including shooting.
Yeah,
but let's think of like in an overall what he will go against. I think he is a really good take. Really good take because
he has an answer to every problem you're going to run into.
And like our list,
except Galadriel, Lady of Light.
Yeah, our list review is like
with the crown. I kind of would feel confident going into her.
He could do it. Whoa,
I think he could do it. I mean, he'll be exhausted. Like he'll be beat up, but I think he could actually play that fight.
No, you could actually do that. I've done it against Alex Wright, I think a long time ago, where I just threw. I was like, there she is. Throw Fell Beast, Ring Wraith, and strike. Like that's all I can do, and surprisingly killed her. I was like, oh, okay. But like that, you have that ability to do that, and the reroll on casting with the crown, these different things. But yeah, just the troop killer. We talked about the DWimmer Lake, like the DWimmer Lake. There's different roles for Ring Wraith. These are supporting Ring Wraith, caster Ring Wraith, combat Ring Wraith. He's all of them.
Yeah,
like all for actually not too many points either. Like
he's almost too efficient, but he's that's what he is. He's a super efficient model. And on Fell Beast, it's just it's nuts what you can throw him around do. But yes, I do agree with Matt that the prevalence of the Lady of Light does make it annoying, but I don't think she totally neuters him. I know I went to the Warhammer World GT and I went against Jasmine Tadley. She had Lady of Light, Boromir and Hurin, and I was playing an Angmar list, and you can beat through that fortified spirit, and it just requires a lot of effort because you got to roll at 6, so you got to make sure you roll 2 dice, maybe an extra just with the reroll, but 2 dice probably with the reroll, and you can beat through it. But yes, it is a little bit taxing, or quite taxing on it. So, and then of course banishment. So, but yeah. Rainier, what did you choose as your number one, knowing that someone else would choose a Fell Beast?
So my number one, I'm going to say it even though Devin said it for his number 2, mine is Gwahir for sure. And I was going to be like, oh, I should change it. No, I'm going to stick to it because he is definitely my number one. Everything that Devin said is true. One thing to add is he's a hero of legend, so you can easily make him your leader. And he allies with basically anything in good armies, like with the Matrix. So you all of a sudden you have a huge hero that you can possibly make him your leader, possibly not. But there you have him destroying back ranks, flying around, not being killed. He's very hard to kill, to be honest. 12-inch range and objective.
And what could be more themed in this game than having a big giant eagle that shows up and solves all your problems?
There you go.
If that's not theme in Tolkien's universe, what is?
Exact. As you're destroying your opponent, you have to say, the eagles are coming. They're just like looking there miserably as you're rolling 6s and throwing their crap all over the place. And you're just like, the eagles are coming. It's like rubbing salt in the wound. But that said, like, it's amazing. The combos that he can give, 150 points. That's like crazy. What I love my group does is they ally him with Galadriel on the mirror, and then you hand the mirror to him like a football, and he's just completely unstoppable. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, it's
you regenerate all your fate.
Regenerate all your fate. Like, I can do stupid stuff and you can surround me, but I'm not going to die. So yeah, just everything. The allies matrix is what I want to say to it. Just brings him over the list. When I see him against me, I'm terrified. When I play him, I'm happy.
We've taken to call that the bird bath list, by the way.
Yeah, the bird bath list. Also, like, it's like this big.
That's what it looks like. Yeah, it's this giant bird on this tiny little bird bath that's flying around.
Yeah, you gotta like model it there too. You gotta like convert it to where he's just like like sprinkling water on himself.
I guess I'm shocked that they didn't make it like the signal tower, where you just pick a location and that's where it is.
They probably will after watching this podcast, because it makes no sense. I want to see him hurl it, to be honest.
Well, I mean, it is actually interesting because I can't remember if the bird bath can be destroyed. I think
it can be. Yeah.
It can. Well, you can pick it up it counts basically as a light object for him. So you don't.
It's a heavy object.
So you can still.
Well, but yeah, for Gwahir, it's a light object.
So he's literally just like has it tucked in his armpit or whatever, or his wing pit.
Yeah, although he does have to drop it whenever he goes into combat. So, I mean, one thing you can do that would actually be kind of amusing is like Gwahir charges in with the mirror, drops it when he goes into combat, and then like 2 orcs run up, grab the mirror, haul it off. Hey, come back here.
Where are you going?
And then he all of a sudden has to barge to go after the mirror.
And then you see this like bird like crawling to go get his bath.
He's getting closer. Run faster.
No, oh my gosh. No, but it's fun. You can use it as a bomber too, because like you have your heroes in one place and just here comes Gwahir, and he like drops it off and then he goes and does other stuff. It's ridiculous. But yeah, that's why Gwahir is my top one. He's amazing to play. You love it when you play him, and like when you play against him, you're literally terrified. Like, shoot, what am I going to do? He can hero assassinate, objective grab. He can be unstoppable with troops and do nasty shenanigans on the flanks. Yeah, that's my top one, Gwahir.
All right, so number one choice for Matt. What do you got for us?
All right, so I mean, setting aside that it's probably would have been Gwahir, I'm actually going to do something different.
Bill the pony.
Well, all right, so. Because the foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of the simple mind, I'm going with Gullivar, the Terror of Arnor, at 200 points. And the reason why this is somewhat inconsistent is because obviously he's got the same vulnerability to Galadriel that the Ring Wraith does, but in any case, he is move 6, which only matters when he's not using his fly special rule. Fight 7, strength 8, defense 5, attack star, wounds 4, courage star, and then might 3, 3 might, 3 will, 0 fate. The star comes with the strength of body, strength of will rule, which means he gets a number of attacks and courage value equal to his wound level, which means that his courage is basically, as long as he's got 4 wounds, his courage is always going to be 4, regardless of any other modifiers. He has his heroic actions are heroic strength and heroic defense. He does not have heroic strike, but he does have fight 7, so he doesn't need it as much as you think you will. And basically, he uses that defense when he's going to go into a fight with somebody who's going to heroic strike against him. He calls the heroic defense in case he loses. So he sticks around. And he also has the Immortal Hunger special rule. So he regains a single wound for each model he slays in combat. Rend is the only brutal power attack that allows Gulavar to regain wounds in this manner. This can never take his wounds beyond 4. So yeah, he's kind of the ultimate hero assassin monster because he also has the fly ability that we've already discussed, the Eagles. Yeah.
Hero assassin when something's transfixed because he didn't have heroic strike, right?
He doesn't have heroic strike, but you still send him in. I mean, first of all, he's almost always followed around by a ring wraith of some sort that's going to transfix somebody. But even so, in the right circumstances, you can throw him in against a hero. The hero is going to strike. You're going to heroic defense. If the hero loses, he's dead. If you win, or if the hero wins, then Gulavar may take a wound. And then, he's down 1 attack and he flaps off, he kills some random warrior somewhere, and then he comes back and does it again. And that's the fun thing with Gulavar is he can go in and he'll take some wounds, he'll munch some guys, he'll get the wounds back, he'll take some more wounds, he'll munch some guys, he'll get the wounds back. You just have to be careful about getting him into a situation where he has no might remaining and he gets ganged up on by a number of people. And he can't call the heroic defense because he is defense 5. So, he'll go down in 1 bad combat if he doesn't have heroic defense going up.
Yeah, I feel like he's with Agmar. A lot of their things are not good against shooting. He's one of them. But I do like your take. I think the lack of heroic strike is what would make me not take him.
That's why I didn't put him in my top 3.
Yeah, heroic defense mitigates that, like you said, which I think heroic defense is actually one of those sleepers, probably one of the best heroics in the game. But the heroic strike kind of for his points and his like assassination kind of feel, then he can't really get to those big heroes.
I think with his stats, by the way, if he had heroic strike, he'd be virtually invincible.
No,
yeah, exactly.
He should have heroic strike. No, he's very well designed. I would say Gulavar is extremely well designed in the fact that he doesn't have heroic strike, and in the list that he's in, that doesn't matter. So he's within context, I think Gulavar is 100% should be on the top 3. I'm taking him purposely out of context, as I mentioned, in a Gondor list. The lack of heroic strike, the fact that he gets weaker as he gets wounded. Yes, I do understand he gets stronger as he wounds, but the fact that you can make him need to retreat for a second and go grab someone else to go and refuel.
Yeah.
That's the only reason I need to make my top 3. Now, even out of context, I'd still easily put the guy in my top 10, but
yeah, for sure. And it's back to one of those things where you really need to train with him and practice with him and play events with him to kind of fully do it. It's kind of interesting seeing all of our choices. I'm save points, get your worth. And Matt's are really fine-tuned things that you need his skill to play with, basically. So yeah.
I don't think so. The Watcher in the Waters and the Spider Queen are clearly ones that you need practice with. It's not that clear to me that Gulavar is one of those. The fact that he has the 4 attacks, the fly, and the fight 7. You can put him in the hands of a rank amateur and he can do a whole lot of damage
as long as he doesn't get shot.
Yeah.
As long
as he doesn't get shot.
I think that's the thing too. I've played a lot of Gulavars and I'm not really terrified, but it could be like the play style.
That's because you play Corsairs and you can just shoot into combat.
That's true. But even like different things like chariots or Mahood or different things like that. It's kind of like, I don't know. He is very, very, very good, but I just, he's not as forgiving.
Well, I guess for time's sake, for me, I guess we'll end it there. But we did get through our top 3 lists, and I'm actually curious, ever the viewers, anyone on YouTube, you can comment below and let us know why, if you'd agree with our choices and why you think the catapult trolls should have been on our top 3.
Yeah, somebody's gonna like comment, and we're gonna be like, shoot, we forgot that.
And please, if you do, spell your name phonetically. That will save everybody a whole lot of trouble and apparently some strokes, because we really don't want to kill anybody by mispronouncing their names.
Exactly. And if you have anything we want to review or like what is the theme, like let us know too, because we actually take all of y'all's feedback pretty well.
Oh yeah.
Usually.
All right then. Well, I hope you all enjoyed this episode, and we'll talk to you all very soon.
Bye.